right now going to welcome in one half of the LFA 12 main event. He's going to be competing for the inaugural LFA Welterweight title. How you doing, Ben Neumann?
Doing great.
So, let's get right into it. How was this fight camp? How was preparing for 5 rounds for the title fight?
A lot of the camps, they feel, pretty similar once you get your method down. For the 5-round fight, I didn't really, I don't change too much really, because just with my fighting style, I tend to keep an even keel throughout the fight, and so I usually have some gas left over at the end, and that's just going to tide me right over for these 5 rounds. It's perfect for me. A lot of these guys tend to go all out, and sometimes they gas out, and they're a little more explosive than me. Just with my body style, I'm more of a kind of a steady pace, and 5 rounds, 3 rounds, it's all the same to me.
What's the reaction when you get told you're going to be main eventing up in your area where you've been fighting, and it's a title fight? What was your reaction?
I was pretty excited. I write down my goals and that kind of thing. I think about a year and a half ago, I'd written down my goals were to be able to fight for the title. At the time, I'd written down for RFA, but since then they've merged and even better. Now it's LFA. So, accomplishing that goal, fighting for the title, and winning it, of course, will check that box for me. And then the goal after that was to be in the UFC by next year. So I got to keep checking these off.
This fight has that RFA Legacy FC feel to it. Do you have any thoughts on representing the RFA side heading into this one?
I guess I hadn't thought of it that way. Yeah, he's a former champ, and I had I believe 3 fights with RFA. So no, that's actually kind of a unique way to look at it. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I really liked working for RFA, and there's so many of the continued guys working with the LFA, so it feels kind of similar still. So they get to see a lot of the guys at the fights, the announcers, and everything. So I'd be more than happy to represent them and hopefully get the win for the former RFA folks here.
It's the fight week. You're chilling out. It's also your baking week, right?
Yes, it is indeed. I start tomorrow. Tonight's my last class for teaching, and I take the rest of the week off. And for this fight, I have to make 26 pies and 96 mini pies, or like turnovers. So it'll be good 40 hours of baking I got ahead of me. So that'll keep me busy, keep me from thinking too much or burning energy, worrying about the fight and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to that. I just put on Netflix and spend 6, 8, 10 hours a day baking, something like that.
Now, for the last fight, I believe you went with a lemon pie, right? That you made a new one.
I made a few varieties for the last one. This one I'm making a lemon chiffon and an orange chiffon, which is kind of cool. I've never made an orange curd before, but you have to really reduce the orange juice down to get the flavor stronger, and then make the chiffon, which is whipping up egg whites and adding in whipping in your curd and that type of thing. So it's very light, airy, like a frozen one. And then you thaw it right before it's time to eat it. And then for my turnovers, I got a blueberry cream cheese turnover and a raspberry peach cream cheese turnover, and then a few more of my kind of signature apple pies.
Now, where do you get that inspiration for your recipes from, of what you're going to use, what you're going to put together? How do you formulate this?
Well, I've got a few. I have 4 or 5 favorite baking books. And then sometimes I'll mix and match, a crust from here and a filling from there. And, pies, you can do a lot of that type of thing. So I tweak them over time, and I use my fights as a chance to make new recipes and then tweak them and see what I would want to maybe sell in the future. I'm actually will be, hopefully by the end of the year here, opening an actual licensed bakery. So I'm kind of still figuring out all the details on that, and pretty close to approval with all the government entities. So kind of mix and match, try them out, and then I'll know for sure what I want to be selling hopefully this fall.
And then one more time on the lemon pie from the last fight. How did it come out? Did you get to try any of it, or did you just end up giving away all of it?
I did, yep. So I got a few on that one. So slight miss on my part. I think I cut the lemons just a little bit too thick, so it ended up having a little bit of a little more of a toothsome bite to it than you would probably want, than most people would probably desire in a pie. So I didn't mind it, but it was, if anything, you could say maybe it was a little bit too too chewy because the rinds were maybe I cut it maybe an 1/8 of an inch thick instead of a 1/16 of an inch thick. So I got to cut them a little more paper thin next time, I think.
And then
still tastes a good flavor, but.
Then in the Baker persona, who do we give credit to for the new T-shirts? I saw them up on Facebook recently. Got some awesome looking gear for this fight, the T-shirts.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, a gentleman named Matt Jaden that used to live up here in the Twin Cities, and now he's down in Texas. But yeah, he helped me develop my little Baker logo, and any T-shirts I've done in the past, he's made those again. So I kind of worked with him over a month or two to try and get ideas for what I wanted, and he kind of brings them to life and sends me the logo, and then I was able to create the T-shirts, and I just got them in yesterday, so able to get those out to some of my fans here this week.
We look back at your last fight, Damian Hill, a lot more striking. You put your striking to use. You still eventually got it to the ground, got your submission. How do you feel about that performance?
Yeah, no, overall, I was really glad I got the finish. I didn't want to have to go 3 rounds and not get a finish on a guy. I've never had to do that before. So I was glad I got the finish in that last round there. He was very defensive. I think maybe in his mind he wanted to, just kind of survive those rounds, and I think that would have been a good showing for him. He actually is a smaller fighter. I think he's actually at the last minute stepping up to fight on his fight card now as I think 155 or 145, because he normally fights 155 like I used to. But I think he can maybe squeak out 145, so he's actually fighting last minute on this fight card too. So I think him surviving 3 rounds against me would have been a good showing, and that's probably what he was shooting for, the way he was mainly holding me on the ground and wasn't trying to escape. And so that slowed me down a bit, and I just, basically I said, okay, we'll keep this pace for the first 2 rounds, and then the 3rd round I started to open up my attacks a bit more to increase the chances of getting the finish, and I was able to get it at the last second there, a couple minutes left in the round. So overall, very happy. Didn't get hit at all, controlled the fight, and got the submission. So anytime that happens and I don't get hit, it's all good.
Obviously elated, as you said, with getting this title opportunity. Did you expect it? Was there expectations with the win streak, with the role you've been on? Or was this, out of the expectations greater than?
It was. I was definitely hopeful because how sometimes these things go. There's a little bit of chat back and forth between your manager and the brass at the company, and they're tossing around ideas, but nothing's ever locked in stone. Until you have the contract in front of you, you don't really know. Things change. People get hurt, or they want to go a different way. So I know with my streak going pretty solid, and only having 1 loss in the last 7 fights or whatnot. I knew I had a pretty good chance, and they're coming back to Minnesota again, and so I was really hoping I would get it. But once they finally told me for sure, we got an opponent, you're set, that's when I was finally relieved. Okay, now it's time to go.
What do you think now of the challenge that stands in front of you? What stands between you and that belt? Derrick Krantz, again, a Legacy FC vet, a wrestler, a heavy-handed fighter.
He's that's a tough challenge for sure. He's overall the matchup is great, though. I think he's got a good chance, but so I think I've got a really good chance as well because he's a good grappler. He's a black belt. He doesn't seem to be particularly sneaky with a lot of his jiu-jitsu attacks. Seems to be a little bit more stay on top, control, get some striking in on top. But overall, it seems like really he's mainly using his skills in his boxing, and it's just we'll see. A lot of boxers, the way I fight tends to mess up their style a little bit. We'll see if the same thing happens to him, but the way I use distance tends to throw off a lot of the boxers, the way I use my range and my height. So I think that'll throw him off a bit, and I bet we'll go to the ground some point over 5 rounds, and we'll see if, he's got some good wrestling. We'll see if he can stay on top or not, even if he is on top. I get quite a few submissions off my back, so we'll see if, brown belt, in my case, can beat a black belt. I don't think I've fought a black belt yet, so that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you think that there's going to be a difference that you'll feel on the ground outside of... We've seen his powerful wrestling. I feel like it's going to be power against some more technique because I feel he brute powers kind of a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what, you never know till you feel it, like you said. You don't really know till you get in there. But from what kind of watching on the videos, that's what does what it seems. what it looks like a bit. I was impressed that he was able to beat Brock Larson because Brock Larson's a tough guy. He's a good jiu-jitsu guy too. But he ended up getting him with a knockout, not necessarily on the ground. He was in trouble a bit on the ground against Brock, stuck in a Kimura for a little bit, and was able to escape. So I can see he's tough to finish. Brock had a pretty solid Kimura locked up and couldn't finish it on him. So he definitely got some good defense. It looks like he's gotten caught in a few chokes over his career. So maybe the chokes are more open. We'll see what happens. But you never know until you get in there. That's for sure.
Where do you feel you'll have your biggest advantage in this fight?
I think definitely the ground. The standing, I'm going to be comfortable. I think on my feet, but that's not usually where I finish guys. Or ever where I finish guys. I do my work on the ground. So we'll see if he wants to try and avoid it, or if he can avoid it. But we're going to go to the ground sometime. I'm pretty confident, and that's where even on the bottom or top, for sure. I'm going to be. I'm going to have the advantage there, and that's my chance to win. It's not like a secret I have to try and keep from people. When you have 12 finishes and every single one is on the ground, it's not like I have to dance around it in interviews or anything like that. It's pretty obvious.
12 finishes in 12 wins. How much of a badge of honor is not going to the decision, not going to the judges?
That's it's something that you do kind of focus on. That part of that is you want to be you do want to be an exciting fighter, and getting finishes is much more exciting than going to the decision. To be honest, my number one goal whenever I fight is not getting any head trauma. So that's my number one goal. My number two goal is to win, to get that finish. So I'm definitely happy if I'm not getting hurt, and I'm even happier if I get that finish in under 3 rounds, or in this case 5 rounds. So I want to keep it that way. With 5 rounds to work, just with his body type, it's more likely he gets tired before me. He's got a lot more muscle to feed than I do. So that's the downside of being that powerful. Is oftentimes you get more tired. We'll see if the same thing, if that plays out for him.
Not this fight, not talking about Derrick, but for you, a personal goal. Is a knockout on the feet one that you'd like to achieve, a goal for your career, or not so much because, again, you are so effective on the ground, do what works?
It's something that I would like to one day, but I can't see myself in any particular fight pushing myself to try and, I got to keep on the feet, I got to get a knockout. I can't see myself ever actually changing my strategy to make that happen. So I could see it may happen here or there, mainly with from clinch, throwing knees, a couple fights to go against Jordan Larson. That's kind of what turned it around for me, was up against the cage. I threw a couple of knees to his head, and that dropped him, and that's when I ended up finishing him with the choke. So if anything, I could see me maybe getting a flying knee or a knee from clinch and knocking someone out with that, but I don't see me knocking someone out with one of my punches or kicks anytime soon particularly, but, I could get lucky here and there. I kind of joke around it sometimes with my buddies that one day, even if I get to the UFC or whatnot, I'm 36, 37, or 38, and it's time to retire, just take 1 or 2 local fights against a new guy just to try and get a knockout, back off the skill level, see if you can get approved to fight a 1-0 pro fighter, and see if you can get a knockout. That's probably my main chance of getting one.
What about, you said not receiving too much damage, so no goals for, say, a fight of the night or fight of the year candidate?
I think those come with, I've never focused particularly on that. I want to do my best in each performance, and, if I put in 100%, sometimes these fights to get excited enough that maybe I do get nominated for one of those. Last year, I think I was nominated for, I didn't win, but, I think one of the performance of the year is one of some of the categories were, prospect of the year, and another category I was nominated for submission of the year, I believe. But, you just got to focus on that fight, and these things will come along with it if you perform. So I haven't focused on that as a particular goal of mine yet. But
being a member of the LFA, do you keep up with the other events?
I try to. It's hard for me because I don't have. I should just drop some money and finally get satellite or whatnot. But I tried to get that last card because there are a lot of welterweights fighting on it. Well, 2 cards ago, I believe it was like a fight night, LFA fight night, not an actual TV one. It was on like Flow Grappling or Flow Combat. And I tried to tried to sign up on their website and download it, but I just had some technical issues. It didn't go through, so I had to just read about the fights afterwards. So I don't keep up as well as I should. If I get that, or as when I get that title, I'll probably be watching closer to see what my maybe upcoming opponents will be. But so far, I mainly just kind of read afterwards. I don't get to see a lot of the videos live or anything, so that is a downside to being frugal, I suppose.
Well, do you have any thoughts on the division was more what I was getting at, because over that fight night in Sioux Falls, and then the last event that they had on Access TV in Arizona, they have been showcasing a lot of 170-pound fighters, so your thoughts on the division, really?
Yeah, I know some of the names. I know Logan Storley. We've tried to get close to getting a fight with him, but never quite worked out. So he's a guy that mainly right now, he definitely looks tough. I see he's kind of ranked high in the AXS TV rankings, but it was kind of untested against higher-level competition so far, which is normal, that he's newer to the sport. They're kind of building him up a lot right now, so he's almost an unknown product, because when you just fight brand-new guys or losing records, you're going to look good. So, but with that wrestling, he's definitely good, would be a challenge for some guys. And, I guess the other guys are mainly the guys that I've fought before. I know them pretty well. Dakota seems to have good performances, 2 or 3 good performances in a row, and then a couple of bad ones. He had a good one against me, and he just beat Jordan Larson there. They had a little knee issue. I'm not sure how that turned out with knee to the head. That was not sure if that was legal or not that they had, but I don't know some of the other newer names. I was looking at the Access TV rankings the other day, and some of the names are newer to me, so I do need to brush up on some of these guys.
Looking at that, after winning this belt, do you believe that either one of you, a defense would be next, or do you think the belt gets the call to one of the bigger promotions? I think part of that is, out of your hands. I think part of it would be how strong is that performance? Did you eke out a decision, or do you get like a dominating few rounds and a finish, something like that? So I think that plays into it. But I think another big part of it is how many spots do they actually have open in the UFC at any given time? Sometimes they'll go through spots where they're overbooked, and the UFC, I think it was like maybe 3-4 months ago, they just cut like 30 welterweights or something crazy like that. So they'll go through and they'll have too many guys in the rosters, and they'll cut a bunch, and then they'll need to fill some more openings. So a lot of that's out of control. I don't really know anything extra what goes on behind the scenes for that, but it seems to be that they do tend to pick up the champs after they have either one win or 1 or 2 title defenses. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I got to win this title and then defend it once or twice. My mind, okay, I win, I defend twice. By then, you would almost for sure be in the UFC. It's pretty rare that you can be an LFA or RFA champ, and not get to the UFC after a few title defenses. So I'm mentally focused on getting this title, defending it twice, and at some point in that time frame, getting to the UFC is my goal. Title fight on the horizon, the win streak, baking is going great. So how would you categorize just how life is right now for you?
Oh, life is great. I'm always trying to find the balance point. I'm sure most everyone is between, some of their passions and their work and their family life. So my life is kind of cyclical. I got this fight coming up. My focus is a lot on this fight, of course. So much time and energy goes into selling the tickets and the physical preparation and the mental preparation for these last 3 months, really. And then after the fight, I take some time off and I get to focus a little more on family time. And I got a vacation coming up with my wife for our 3-year anniversary, so that's going to be awesome. And spend more time with her than I get to during the fight camps. And then my other main passion will be baking, and I got trying to make my bakery come online this fall. So I'll spend a little time working on that while we kind of book another fight, hopefully a title defense, and then I'll get my cycle focused back on the training again. So I think overall that helps. It's good and bad to split your interests like that and your time, but I think overall it makes you a more well-rounded individual. Some guys that are so focused on the fighting, man, if they get one loss, it's like their life is over. But, not for me. If I get a loss, I still got, my wife, my family, my face. I've got everything behind it. It's a piece of who I am, but it's not just who I am.
Awesome. Ben Neumann, I got to thank you for the time. Last but not least, was there anybody that you need to thank or shout out to?
I kind of mix up maybe my thank yous between some of these interviews coming up. Maybe this time I'd like to give a shout out to Jeremy Dronberg for all the time he's put into me. as a fighter. He's my manager at Sterling Entertainment Group, and he manages a bunch of other great guys and fighters. It's just when I tried to get into fighting, 8 years ago, I had one fight, and then as kind of a manager who was not the best, you could say, and I couldn't get fights at all. I was willing to fight on a day's notice. I was just staying in shape, and I couldn't get fights at all. And I just messaged him on Facebook, and he took me on, having only one pro fight, and he's guided me ever since then and given me fights that make sense and helps me with advice, and has got me these opportunities. So I'd like to maybe give a shout out to him this time.
Awesome. Everybody, tune in this Friday night, Access TV, LFA 12. Ben Neumann, thank you for the time, sir.
Awesome. I appreciate it.